I think today we're going to talk about, kind of dive into the surface of aquaponics. So who's doing aquaponics or has done it in the past? Is anyone doing it right now? Is anyone? Yeah, a little bit. Okay.
Yeah, but it's more for like aquatic or aquascape.
Okay.
Not aquariums, not for cheap.
Aquatic plants. Cool. So I'll try to move through this because you guys already have great conversation going on. A lot of good questions so far. So we'll try to leave some room for some Q&A for those who are interested. Who's interested in aquaponics versus aquaculture? Aquaponics. Okay, that's awesome. How about aquaculture? And some are both probably, right? Yeah. Okay, great. So as you probably all know, aquaponics is a sustainable farming method that combines aquaculture, raising fish, and hydroponics, growing plants without soil. This is kind of a crude but accurate description of the system. Everything starts at the fish tanks. So you feed the fish create their waste in the fish tanks. That fish waste flows through into biofiltration. That's where you have the third living element of an aquaponic system. So your plants, your fish, and then all your good nitrifying bacteria. That bacteria is what breaks down the ammonia-rich fish waste into usable nutrients for the plants, nutrients that the plants can actually absorb through their roots. So goes ammonia, nitrite, then to nitrate, being readily available nitrogen for the plants. Once the water and waste is through biofiltration, you pretty much don't have any more raw fish waste. That nutrient-dense water then flows underneath all the plants. They're, of course, growing with all that nutrient density, but they're also filtering out a lot of those nutrients, kind of cleaning the water. The water then goes back to the top of the system. Typically, your highest point in an aquaponic system is your fish tank. A little bit about root house specifically. You heard a little of this in the video, but we use 100% rainwater that we collect off the roof. We're in a greenhouse, so we're using as much natural sunlight as possible. But to grow through the winter, you have to use some supplemental lighting. We're out in the country, surrounded by a lot of conventional farming, so fresh air versus cities and urban farming. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's something we enjoy. 8,500 square foot greenhouse, about 6,000 square feet is in plants, about 2,000 square feet in fish. We are certified naturally grown, which is kind of a grassroots certification. Aquaponics, your hands are tied with inputs. There are a lot of things you can't use, and even I think around 70% of what's approved for organic farming and organic produce is harmful to fish or aquatic invertebrates. So I always say, we're BTO, we're better than organic, and certified naturally grown kind of helps us, gives us that credibility. We're an Ohio Proud member. Like you heard in the video, non-GMO on our fish feed. It's also land animal byproduct free. And we're non-GMO from our feed to all of the seeds and genetics we grow. IPM, integrated pest management, we only use biological controls. So we either hatch and release beneficial insects, or we use biological sprays. That's a whole category that I never thought I would know so much about bugs and proteins and all these different ways to attack your pests. I mean, no matter if you're in a warehouse doing this or in a greenhouse, you're still going to get pests on your crops. So you've got to. So we strictly stick with biological controls, all fish safe things. We only supplement our system for iron and pH. And at any given time, we have about 2,300 tilapia. that's an old number there. We're growing them right now to probably about 1.75 to 2 pounds in 9 months. We purge our fish for 5 to 7 days, sell whole on ice, or I transport them live to a couple, food markets that have big tanks in their seafood area. We're manually feeding 3 to 5 times per day. However, we have been experimenting with some automation, and we only raise dark blue Nile tilapia. Sometimes some pearls are mixed in there. So this is our nursery system here, where we raise our baby fish. We do not hatch. Curtis said it the best. I always say it's like an entire different business. You can't really run this and a hatchery at the same time. Something different between aquaponics and aquaculture, we need way less fish than someone like Curtis. That 2,300 Nile tilapia at any given time is across 9 different tanks. That's a very small amount of fish compared to the gallons of water that Curtis has in his facility. We just everything's very balanced from a scientific standpoint about how many fish you need, how much waste they create, and how much plant life that can sustain. So I know we had a question back here about size and what can you fit. It all really originates at the space you have available, and everything from there is kind of somewhat determined, based on how many fish tanks can you put in here, and then that can determine how many how large of an area you can grow plants with. You can look at it the other way too and say, hey, I want to grow X amount of plants and X amount of time, and then you can size your fish based off of that. So it can go both ways, but there is an answer. We grow 5 varieties of living head lettuce. Our lettuces last up to 3 weeks. Like I said, there's no soil, no sprays, no chemicals, so we don't wash anything that we eat out of our greenhouse. It really is, if you do it right, it's kind of a beautiful thing, especially as you compare it to what we're all used to from the grocery store. Actual flavor, good color, good aesthetic, and a shelf life that constitutes a pretty good price at market, because that value is there. We don't have any waste. We don't create any waste. We're a zero waste facility. There's always excess waste in an aquaponics system that you have to deal with. So we reuse that in our system to grow in those rock beds, media beds. So we'll skip that one. This is, we have 500-gallon tanks. So we have 6 of them in our commercial system. There's about 250 fish per fish tank. That's calculated. That density is calculated based on 1 pound of fish per 1 gallon of water. So if we're going to try to grow our fish in 9 months to 2 pounds, we're going to have 250 fish for a 500-gallon tank. And there are some interesting things about the laws of diminishing returns. We only order 250 fish a month, but they'll send us 300, 380 sometimes. And for a while we thought, well, why would we get rid of these fish? If we can keep them all alive, wouldn't this just be extra income, extra product to sell? Well, it actually kind of works against you. Your stocking density is very specific for a reason. And so now we realized we were feeding them more fish. We had a larger variance of size at harvest, and the ratio of input of fish feed did not equal more sellable weight at the end of the 9 months. So now we cull down to 280 when we get fish, and some mortalities in the nursery before they go over to the commercial system. Just a little interesting thing that we figured out. We've kind of seen all this. So fish tanks, appropriate for your fish, for the species that you're going to grow. There's a lot of different types of fish tanks. And aquaponics, we'll talk about this a little bit at the end, but system design is critical to success. You can't, there's a lot of ways to do it, but if you want to run a business around a system, which I think are two different things, running a system in an aquaponic greenhouse is kind of separate from selling everything that you can grow. But system design and where you get it, where you find the design, where you buy your system from is absolutely the first critical step to being successful. And it all comes down to truly just the design. What kind of solid separator do you have? Do you use mineralization tanks, bioreactors, degassing tanks? What kind of grow areas are you going to have? Deep water culture, raft culture? Are you going to use media beds? Are they inline? Are they dead end? Betos, Dutch buckets? Are you going to fertigate your excess waste out to an orchard on the side of your greenhouse? There's a lot of beautiful things to do with the byproducts of this system as well, but these choices along the way are critical. We raise tilapia, so we have to heat our system. We like to keep our water year-round around 74 degrees, and that means in the summer in Cincinnati, we're chilling that water too, actively spending money on a chiller loop that runs through that same heat exchanger to try to keep the water cool enough. In the summer, we're trying to keep it cool for the plants. If the plants get too warm, they'll bolt, they'll go to seed, they'll start pushing off, their next round of offspring, and then they're inedible. They're so bitter you can't sell it. In the winter, it's all about the fish and the lettuce too, but lettuce is kind of a cooler weather crop, so really your higher priority is maintaining 73, 74 degree water for the fish sake. You guys have any questions right now? Yeah.
A little bit of your channels. How do you harvest? Do they spread? Are they in open walkways on rollers, or are you pulling a channel at the same time? Because those were big.
Sure. So yeah, there's 16 and a half feet wide by I think 64 feet long. It's kind of a conveyor belt system. So we've got a germination area for 0 to 12-day old seeds. The next area is NFT, kind of those gutters. Those are 12 to 24-day old. And then we're hand transplanting at every stage. So we go A to B, B to C. Once they're in C, the deep water or raft culture, everything is floating, right? So we harvest off of the large end where all the heads are ready to sell and eat. So we'll harvest those off. We'll run we'll give a rinse to all of our rafts, and those rafts go back to the end of the greenhouse. We take the gutters out, hand transplant into 18-hole rafts. When we put those back into the water beds, everything floats forward to harvest again. So then we're ready for tomorrow.
So the gutters actually pull the whole gutter.
Pull the whole, yeah. We don't have those robots yet. I can't wait. But there's
little drones that pick up the plants.
Yeah, I mean, there's a fine line between growing and farming. It's hard to distinct, but there's definitely a version of, I think it's more in the hydroponic market where you've got sensors and robots and articulating arms and all this different stuff, and all of a sudden you see product quality just totally drop off. And so you're not farming anymore. You're not touching your plants. You're not observing, 7-8 hours a day. I think there's an intersection somewhere in there where it's balanced, but going full automation, as much money as it might save on labor, I think you're gonna have pitfalls somewhere else.
I think some of those people are farming investors.
Absolutely, because they want to sell their robots.
Millions and millions of dollars for startup of this type of thing,
Mm-hmm.
and then 5 years later they're out of business. But I'm pretty sure they didn't sell their last car to fund it.
Totally. Yeah, that's top line agro-tech. Like, they're not worried about product. You know, when I started this, I really wanted it to be, you know, continue to push the bar, continue to figure out how can we grow the best this, the best that, the healthiest this, the prettiest this, whatever it is, whatever a chef or a consumer at retail is looking for, like, how can we meet those standards? Healthy system principles. Water quality is really the backbone of aquaponics, aquaculture as well, but that's your fish, plant, bacteria environment. You've got to, you know, we're doing daily pH, temperature, dissolved oxygen tests. Dissolved oxygen is really more, you know, monitoring fish activity, but pH and temperature are every morning, 7 days a week. Ammonia, nitrite, we do those on a need-to basis at this point. Iron, we test every 3 weeks. Nitrate, you know, we're watching the plants on nitrate, and we'll send out, we'll run a test if we see an issue. So all of those, all the water quality, like I said, it's balancing for 3 living elements. And that, I think, goes into the next slide, which is, you know, fish selection. You see tilapia is the most common fish because they're hardy. I think somebody mentioned chickens earlier, but tilapia have a higher feed to weight ratio than chickens. They're even more efficient at turning expensive fish food into sellable mass. So there's always trade-offs. Temperature needs, oxygen needs, ammonia and nitrite sensitivities to toxic levels. So there's a reason tilapia are common. You can do it with a lot of different fish, and there's a lot of great fish, other fish to do it with, but you know, you got to look at your system, design, what crops you're going to grow, because you're balancing those parameters of a species of fish with temperature of you know, the same water that plants are going to be sitting in. So they're kind of, they're not easy, but they might be a little easier to raise, to learn. Definitely a good starting point. You know, if you're going to start a aquaponic system, I don't see why you wouldn't do tilapia to learn it, because there is, you know, probably the first year, 2 years, like Curtis is saying, you know, I kind of think go fast and just do it, but I've never killed 10,000 fish, so. But I have way less fish too, so ratios probably killed the same amount of fish. But you got to look at the marketability too. Sorry.
Did you lose plants? He lost fish. Did you lose plants?
You know, we had our first fish die off this last winter. That was a water temperature issue that Herbert and I worked on, and essentially, I think our hatchery said it best. You'd rather have, you know, a couple fish die off from some unknown reason than a full fish die off and know exactly why. And we had opportunistic bacteria, you know, at low water temperatures. So yes, I've killed some fish. By not,
You lost all those fish?
we've had some crop loss due to like powdery mildew, some fungal issues with high humidity, but no, we've never like lost a full crop of fish or plants. A lot of yeah.
Quick question. I saw in one of your slides you say you purge every 5 to 7 days.
So that's,
what does that mean?
Yeah. So that's purging a fish is at the end of their life cycle when you're getting ready to sell them or eat them. You take them off feed. We take our fish off feed for a day while they're in the system water, and we'll net them out and move them into an isolated system that has fresh rainwater and about 7 parts per thousand salt, and then we leave them in there for 5 to 7 days to empty out their digestive tract. There's very fine mesh filter on there, so they're kind of cleaning out their body, and it's a polish of already a great fish. We're just polishing that off for better flavor, better texture, and a little lighter in color on the flesh.
So it's just the fish that kind of lacks cyborg in the system.
Yes.
You take them out.
Move them over here.
5 to 7 days.
Yes.
All right. The second question is related to the vegetable.
Mm-hmm.
What is the cycle? How many days they
Sure.
move through?
Good question. So on lettuce, we're on average about 38 days from seed to full-size head. On like something like basil, we sell a lot of cut basil by the pound. I think that's around like 55 days right now. So in the summer, we've seen 32 days, and the heads are too big to fit in crispers. These are up here to view, but I'll pass some of them around. You want to pass some in the back? If you guys want to pass them down, you can check out, the lettuce, our packaging. I'm not taking those home with me, so whoever wants to fight for them, they taste pretty darn good. So we grow the lettuce, of course, edible flowers, probably about 15 plus microgreen varieties at any given point, some power greens, and then our tilapia as well. So let's see. So we also use vermiculture in our media beds where all of our excess fish waste goes. This is a time lapse. These are not the invasive jumping worms. But they have spanned us now to 6 years without cleaning our beds. Typically, you have to clean these once a year. Because it's really just, all these hydroton rocks are teeming with all that same bacteria in the main system. So we're just sending raw fish waste. And literally, an hour after the waste is pumped up into these rocks, you scoop your hand down and it just smells like fresh earth. Like the activity, the bacteria activity, and the breakdown of the fish waste is still incredible. Here's an example of hatching out some praying mantis, predator bugs that are going to go on the hunt and eat our bad bugs in the greenhouse. This kind of comes down to running a good system. You can make this work in a tabletop system with some fish and some floating plants. But if you're going to do this in a concerted effort, get a loan, run a business, put some risk on the line. Record keeping is critical. Almost anything you do. We keep records down to the gram of every feed for every tank. Pounds of fish in, pounds of fish out. Every time we move fish, everything's recorded. It's really helpful to be able to go back and look and help forecast things. I've got 3 employees, and filling out logs can be tough when you're just busy. But it really is a very critical part of even a small system. Even if you're running a classroom-sized system, it's still critical. Let's see. How are we on time?
We have 5 minutes.
Okay, well, that's not that long. Do you guys have any questions? Oh, right on time. Yes.
Marketing, how did you transition, to move this much living lettuce? How hard was it getting into it?
It was just a lot of cold call. Take product, especially if you have the product. Now I built this place in 2019, had my first sellable, I'll call it, because our produce quality is way different today, but first sellable stuff in early 2020. took a meeting with 2 chefs, and then COVID shutdown started happening. So it was really kind of, it's a little difficult to, strategize that time period. But it's a lot of, if you have the product, go give it away, because you got more coming through. So go sell it, get good packaging, work on your labeling. Branding's important. Set yourself apart, but really just go let people. If it tastes good and it lasts a long time, and your products are healthy, go prove it. That's what makes the biggest difference, I think, to chefs mainly.
Are you a lot of direct consumer chef directly, or are you in any retail establishments?
We're self-distributed across the board. So we've got our own van. It goes out twice a week. We're about 65% restaurant. And I didn't set out to do retail. I wanted to do all wholesale, less packaging, higher margins, a relationship-driven business with chefs and restaurants. COVID took that away. So we've been much higher retail historically, and I've been kind of shifting that back, trying to get into more restaurants.
Has it been, because that was kind of my experience, I was doing NFT stuff pre-COVID.
Yeah.
And trying to get in, selling to Ohio State, selling to DNO, getting into that market.
Mm-hmm.
It was just so hard to get them to commit to a product that wasn't, proven, I guess.
Sure.
At that point, and the same way getting into, Meyer, Kroger, different things.
Yeah.
But the biggest problem was they want a certain, quantity.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where, we don't have that cooperative advantage yet in Ohio, where there's enough producers saying, hey, can we all grow a uniform product and get into some of these larger chains?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a challenge, because, even at volume, if we were to be at a volume of output where Kroger would even entertain, I'm not even sure I'd want to.
Right, exactly.
Right?
What do you retail at? Like your living lettuce at?
I think retail, our wholesale numbers, we let the retailer kind of do what they need to do. But typically, I think like that crisper you saw passed around, a crisper of any variety of lettuce, we're priced across the board the same per unit. So some seeds are cheaper, some seeds are way more expensive, but we just kind of average it out between $4 and $6. And it's well, that's like called MSRP. That's what a customer would be paying at a retailer of ours, and I think that's probably actually more like $5 to $6.50. Thinking about it now, so yeah, I think we're a little bit above 3 per unit on wholesale.
That's great. I mean,
That's
way higher than what it was 10 years ago.
Yeah, and that's not packaged. That's a bulk case. Yeah, exactly. But we do it different. We have a story to tell. We have a product that stands separate. So you go tell that story and show some videos, and encourage a chef or even a retailer to come see your facility. And the sale is 98% complete at that point.
I just wanted to touch bases only with one more aspect before we go to lunch, and it's tilapia. Where are you selling your tilapia, and how you sell it?
Yes, we sell our tilapia at Jungle Gyms. Has anyone heard of Jungle Gyms? Yeah. So at both locations, they've got a wild story and history themselves, but they have the big acrylic tanks and seafood. So I will cart them over on a back of a truck with oxygen and move them 3 times that day. It's usually about 450 pounds once a month. So then they go swim in the tanks, fresh, clean water, net them out, and they process them for you right there. So we kind of, our marketing pitch on that is swimming the same day. Like, you're truly eating. Can you get fresher fish swimming the same day? No. We're landlocked in Ohio, and we have great farm-raised fish.
But the other one that strikes me the most, the restaurant.
The sashimi?
The sushi.
So because we use our feed, our very specific feed sourcing, and really the lack of inputs. We don't have a lot of nonsense. We use, let's see, we use potassium hydroxide and calcium hydroxide for pH balancing. We use a chelated iron to supplement plant iron. Other than that, it's fish food. Like, this is nearly pure aquaponics, as pure as you can get it. You know, there are some pitfalls to doing it this way where we'll have some stress on plants, or plants won't be perfect because we're not supplementing. We're not kind of, you know, balancing out some deficiencies that do arise on occasion. So the lack of inputs, the rainwater, and the high quality inputs that of the few we use have given us something I didn't even set out to do, which is just a really delicious farm-raised fish, which, you know, you hear sashimi and tilapia, and that is absolutely an oxymoron, especially with, you know, certain myths that are out there. They're not bottom feeders. They're not trash fish. If you raise these fish in a clean environment, they'll be just as good as a walleye.